Assalamu alaikum. Today on Nuran Academy, we discuss the ledger of trust. If you benefit, please support by subscribing and sharing as a sadaqah. When we looked back at the great centers of Islamic civilization, their prosperity wasn't just built on amazing ideas or tons of resources. Nope, it was built on something you can't see, but it's absolutely essential: trust. And where did that trust come from? It grew from one simple, powerful principle: clarity. When records were clear, dealings were honest. Accountability was just the standard, not something special. So let's explore this whole idea through a story. We're going to follow a man named Yusuf, a professional accountant. Now, for him, a ledger wasn't just some book filled with figures, it was a record of his own integrity. He truly understood that every number, every single entry, was a form of amanah, a sacred trust from Allah, placed right there in his hands. So how did he get this incredible perspective? Well, it all started at the very beginning of his journey, when he was learning the fundamentals of his craft. He didn't just see it as a job, but as a spiritual duty. He learned from some of the best, wise merchants and the managers of charitable endowments, the Waqf, and they taught him three core disciplines. First, record every single coin, because nothing is insignificant. Second, you have to clearly, absolutely distinguish between funds held in trust and your own personal money. That's a critical line that can never be blurred. And finally, and this is so important, you have to embrace the urgency of accountability. Settle your accounts every single day, as if it might be your last. At the very heart of Yusuf's whole philosophy is this concept: amanah. And look, this isn't just about being honest with money. It's a huge Islamic principle that covers everything we're responsible for: our time, our knowledge, our relationships, our professional duties. It's that constant awareness that we're going to be held accountable for how we manage every single trust. His teacher left him with this unforgettable warning. Just think about that for a second. In this life, we can edit spreadsheets, we can hide our mistakes. But on the day of judgment, that ledger is final. You can't edit it. This one single thought completely transformed Yusuf's work from just a profession into a profound act of worship, something he performed with every number he wrote. Okay, so as Yusuf's reputation for honesty started to grow, he faced new and even more subtle pressures. Because the biggest tests of our integrity, well, they often show up disguised as these small, harmless requests. And this lays out the dilemma he faced perfectly. On one side, you've got the easy path. Clients asking for little adjustments to lower their tax bill, or maybe suggesting they just round expenses to make things look a little cleaner. They might ask to delay disclosing a loss, saying, "Oh, come on, everyone does it." But Yusuf, he knew the right path. It was harder, for sure, but it was the only one that mattered. Exact records, full transparency, and immediate accountability. No shortcuts. You see, the internal question Yusuf was asking himself was on a whole different level. The world asks, can I get away with this? Will it pass the audit? But a believer asks a much, much higher question. Will this action stand on the day of judgment? Is it built on a foundation of truth that's actually going to endure? That one shift in questioning, it changes absolutely everything. Yusuf realized pretty quickly that just resisting temptation wasn't enough. He had to be proactive. So he started designing systems that didn't just rely on his own personal willpower, but that actually made honesty the easiest and most logical choice for everybody involved. And here's the practical framework he put into place. First, completely separate bank accounts for any public or trust funds. This removes any possibility of mixing them up. Second, weekly reconciliations. Not monthly, not quarterly, weekly. This way you catch any issues immediately before they can get bigger. And third, he wrote his ledger notes with such clarity that anyone, even a non-expert, could pick them up, understand them, and perform an audit. Sure, it took more time and effort, but the return on that investment was immeasurable. And what was that return? It was this feeling, this reputation that spread all over the city. His signature became more valuable than the numbers themselves. It was a guarantee of integrity, a seal of trust. It gave clients and partners and donors total peace of mind. His name became his brand. And his brand was trustworthiness. This whole system was really put to the test when a local charity he managed suddenly faced a shortfall. Of course, rumors started flying, but instead of hiding, Yusuf immediately opened the books for public review. The records were so transparent, they showed the error was just a simple miscalculation, not theft. The problem was contained, trust was restored, and that charity was saved. His system proved that transparency doesn't create problems, it solves them before they can fester and multiply. And now, we get to the ultimate test. I mean, it's one thing to be honest in your day-to-day dealings, but what happens when a life-changing opportunity comes along, but it has an ethical compromise attached to it? This is where true principles are really forged. So, a very powerful patron made him an incredible offer. We're talking exclusive work, meaning a stable, lucrative career, significantly higher pay, and the prestige that comes with being linked to the city's elite. But there was a condition, and it was hidden in some very polite language: selective reporting. He was being asked to conceal certain transactions, to compromise the very clarity that defined his entire life's work. Yusuf declined the offer, and that night he was reflecting on his decision, and he wrote this powerful line in his personal journal. He understood a deep, deep spiritual truth. His livelihood, his rizq, it comes from Allah. If he earned it through deceit, the provision itself would stand as a witness against him on the day of judgment. He just refused to let his sustenance be tainted by falsehood. So what was his legacy in the end? Years later, long after markets had shifted and managers had come and gone, people still sought out Yusuf's old ledgers. And why? Because they were clear. They were an undeniable source of truth. His work actually outlasted his career, his clients, and even his own life, all because it was built on a foundation that could not be corrupted. And this brings the whole story right back to us, doesn't it? In our own lives, in our own professions, we are all going to face this choice. There will be a moment when telling the absolute truth, when being perfectly accurate, threatens our comfort, maybe our job, or even a relationship. In that moment, what are we going to choose? The easy path of convenience or the enduring path of clarity? Because here's the ultimate lesson from Yusuf's ledger. Our work is never just about the task in front of us. A true professional in the Islamic tradition gets that their main job is to be a guardian of trust. We don't just balance books or write code or treat patients. We balance the sacred trust that has been placed in our hands. Presented and created by Nuran Studio.